Welcome in to the Keon Sports Network. Today, a very special guest, Northeast Ohio St. Edward's legend, Gray Maynard. Also, clearly, you remember him from the UFC. A lot of people would and do. So really, the best of both worlds here. As you know, we focus a lot on the UFC and MMA, and we focus a lot on local athletes. This combines it all. Up next, Gray Maynard. Welcome into the Keon Sports Network. I am your host, Vince McKee. Today's guest, Gray Maynard. As I just said, a lot of people know him from St. Edwards, however you want to call it. But clearly, he made his name worldwide on the national scale with the UFC and continues to really be a living legend amongst fighters. One of those guys who came up through the ranks and were just incredible. Some of the names he beat along the way, absolutely amazing. So it's an honor of ours today to go ahead and have Gray on the program. If you have any questions, let us know. Vince McKee, CoachVin14 is the email, and we'll be happy to answer them. Up next, Gray Maynard. All right, on the hotline now, Northeast Ohio sensation. You know him, you love him. Also from the UFC, it is Gray Maynard. Gray, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to start right from the top with you. You come from a wrestling family, as your father Jan was a two-time OHSAA state champion. So wrestling's been in your blood your whole life. When did you start the sport, and how much of an influence was your father in the process of you learning the sport?
Yeah, we lived in Ohio when I was a kid, when I was a little kid, and my dad, he was known all over the place. He was a two-time state champ, and I started wrestling at a pretty young age. It was probably like 3 or 4 over in Copley. And then, just kept taking it from there. He was never really one to push me, there was years like I would take off, and play football and just played a lot of different sports, but he would always instill, and kind of tell me stories like about, all the greats and he just really bred me well, like of the knowledge before he even kind of taught me a move, and I attribute like a lot of my success and my drive to him.
Your father's success in the OHSAA, in the OHSAA, we deal with that all the time. We are the leader in high school coverage out here in Northeast Ohio, so we see athletes of all kinds, all sports. Now, for your father, like you said, kind of living legend at that time, two-time state champion. So you're living in Las Vegas at this point, finishing up your sophomore year of high school. What was the decision, and why did you decide to be moved back here to Ohio to go to St. Edward for your junior and senior year? Obviously, they're still a powerhouse to this day. What was the motivation? How did it all go down for you?
Yeah, well, again, there was a lot of schools popping up at the time. Like back in his day, you had Maple Heights, which was a powerhouse, but there's a lot of schools popping up all over the country, and he was a big believer that Ohio is the best, and I remember before my 10th grade year, I just wanted to test myself. I wanted that test. I wanted to go up against all the best. And before my 10th grade year, we made a deal. He said, if you win state and you run through everybody, get good grades, we'll get you to a place to where you can go up against the top guys. And we looked at Calvary Chapel a little bit and Blair, but St. Ed's always kind of stood out, and I don't know if it's, we grew up, he took me to the St. Ed's duels a couple times and that just always kind of stood out. And just being a state champion, like in a state where he was a state champion, that was a big deal to us. And, but he really didn't try to steer me either way. He wanted what was best for me, but that was what was best for me, which, it was great. And he kept to his deal, and Like, we made it happen. I packed up my car after 10th grade year, and all the great Ohio people, and I jumped around a lot of houses, kind of lived with my aunt and uncle, lived with Kozicki's, Andy Rovat, his parents helped out a lot. Everybody helped out, and I owe a lot to all those people.
Hey, and what a class it was. We talked a little bit off the air, but one name that jumps off, and I know the name you just said, and there's several other ones. It was a big name class there, but one a lot of people know from his days now, ironically enough, in the WWE, is your classmate and your teammate Nick Nemeth. What was it like wrestling alongside Nick? And did you kind of just figure? Did you ever think like he would go on to be the WWE? I mean, St. Ed's is known for some big names, but it's just crazy to think that one wrestling team now has a professional wrestler and one of the top MMA guys of his time.
Yeah, we Coach Heffernan, he nicknamed him the Shark, and it was because of like the funky move he did. He would just do these like weird moves, and honestly, like I kind of whooped his ass every day in practice, but he was one of the most annoying guys to wrestle because of that. Like, there was nothing, standard about him, but he was just, you had to work for every point, and he was just one of those guys that was, a tough guy to train with, and he was a pretty tough guy to compete against. He went on to Kent State, and he did great things in the sport. Now, as far as the WWE, he was always into that. He would have people over. Him and Tolar, he was on the team too.
Yep.
Yeah, and they would have people over, for WWE night or whatever it was. I never made it over there. I was never into it, but yeah, it was a crazy team. We had Olympians, we had NCAA champions, we had All-Americans, a ton of All-Americans. We had a ton of D1s, and it showed. We ran through everybody in the country.
Oh, absolutely, and that brings me to your senior year. I actually grew up in a wrestling family. My Uncle Pete took second in the state in 76. My dad took fourth in, I think it was 75. So, wrestling is in my blood, and I know the unbelievable sacrifice it takes people to wrestle. I don't think a lot of people get it, but, I will swear to anybody on this earth that amateur, high school, and college wrestling is the toughest sport you could send your kid out for. There's no tougher sport than that, and I will go to my grave saying that. Now, your junior year, you finished runner-up in the state, and then you come back your senior year. Not only do you win the state title, but I'm almost positive on this one that you were perfection. I don't think you lost a single match your senior year of high school. How much motivation was it losing, becoming runner-up as a junior? How much motivation did that give you to come back and just kick serious ass your senior year?
And like, it goes back to, I think every kid should compete in wrestling. I think that's hands down. We learn about team sports, and we're always on team sports, but it really helps kids to understand what you put in is what you get out. And I think there's no better sport to do than wrestling. You're going out like on the mat alone, and you start to understand, like, it becomes crystal clear of what you put in, right? Like, oh, okay, I'm here alone, and it's all up to me. Did I work hard? Did I eat smart? Did I do all the stuff that I need to do to achieve? And you carry that into life. And again, like, wrestling is a sport to where it's all dreams and goals. I mean, there's no professional sport afterwards. So we were doing this because of the love of the sport, because we wanted to be the best, and you have the dreams and the goals, and you get addicted to the work ethic and the payoff, and moving, like uprooting my whole life and like moving away from my parents after my 10th grade year, it was hard on my parents. It was hard on me. And, I felt a little like I let people down my junior year. Took second in the state. I lost to a couple of good kids in the country. It was just one of those years to where I realized, like, I got what I wanted, which is to go up against all the top guys in the country. And so what happened was, it was like those two paths, like, hey, you know what? I could just move home. I could just be happy. I'm competing with the top kids, but I think that drove me more than anything was, to come back and to prove why I belong there and why I was there, which was to beat all the top kids.
Upon graduation at MSU, you're a Sparty. You ranked 11th all time in Michigan State University history with 106 career wins, 7th with 26 falls. Why do you feel that your time at MSU, Michigan State, was so good? And, also, what was it like having a guy like Rashad Evans as a roommate to push you? I mean, you and him coming out of the same dorm room, I can't even imagine. Girls were probably running one way and men running the other away from you.
Yeah, there's a couple good stories about that, but first, I'll get a little serious. Like, that wasn't what I expected in college, right? I wanted a lot more, like in college and out of my college career. So at the time graduating, it wasn't. It's kind of how I felt my junior year. Not achieving the goals and not beating all the top, like all the top guys. I had a great time at college. I met a lot of people who I keep in touch with still. It was a great school, but, as far as wrestling, I just didn't achieve what I really think I should have achieved. And, that keeps you hungry, and, it keeps you, putting new goals, and, eventually, like, it put a new goal of being the best in the world in MMA. And, but Rashad, we were pretty close. We had a lot of good times, and we stayed in hotels together. And here's a quick story, but we were staying in a hotel. It was my senior year in Champaign, Illinois, and we kept the scale in our room because we were team captains, and we just didn't want to walk to anybody's room to check our scale. We kept the door like unlocked where people could come in and go and check their weight. And I remember it was like 2 a.m. and I'm sleeping, and I hear the door open, and I'm like, man, somebody must be like really cutting weight hard. They're checking their weight at 2 a.m. And then I feel a person crawl in bed with me. And I go, dang, they must be really cutting weight. They can't even make it back to their room. And then I smell alcohol.
Oh, no.
And so this is all stuff going through my head as I'm waking up. And I smell alcohol over him. I'm like, oh, dude, this is our trainer. He must have like got drunk and went to the wrong room. And then I wake up and I turn over, and like I see this guy. I don't even know who he is. So I jump up. I go, Rashad, get up. And we both get up. We're like, who are you? What are you doing here? And, he's looking at us like we're in his room. And like in college, I had, like no two front teeth. My teeth got knocked out during wrestling. And then you see like Rashad Evans, 174 pounder. We're all pretty like, built and just like ready to go. We got our hands up like, yo, what are you doing? And And so he starts like getting up, and he gets out of the bed, and he's completely naked with black socks on. So we're like, yo, B, get out of here. What are you doing? And he's like so confused. And we kind of start to understand like that, we're not going to beat up this guy because he messed up. We're like, put your clothes on. And then he starts trying to put my pants on, and I'm slapping his hands like, get off my pants. Stop. Drop my pants. Don't touch them. And then we threw him a little towel, and then all of a sudden we hear the door open, and we see this woman, obviously his wife, like she must have heard us like yelling and shit. And, she just opens the door, looks at him, tells him to come here, doesn't say a word, and they leave without even saying a word. Me and Rashad like look at each other, and we're like, what just happened? We just saw this guy completely naked with black socks on. Oh man, wasted out of his mind.
Oh God, that is hilarious.
Yeah, so there's a story about a girl and a guy running from us.
Oh, that's too funny. So it's great too, because now I've been in quarantine all these months. It's just nuts, and I'm sitting around and watching all these old UFCs and Ultimate Fighters and everything. So I gotta ask you now, your first kind of spotlight on the main stage obviously was being a part of the UFC's Ultimate Fighter. Did you go on that show, for a chance to train with BJ Penn, or did you go on because Rashad Evans had already been on there, and obviously you guys were friends? What led you getting on that show?
Me and Rashad kept in touch, like after college, just kind of emailing. He started MMA a little bit before me. I was down in Arizona training for the Olympic team, and I kept telling him to come out. There's a bunch of MMA guys, and he got on that show. That was after I moved back to Vegas. But ultimately, I went on that the show because again, I wanted to go compete like against all the best guys, and that was my way in. They just brought back the 55-pound weight class, mm-hmm. And I had trained with BJ Penn. He flew me out to Hawaii for about 3 weeks to help him with the wrestling skills and stuff during his training camp for Rodrigo Gracie, and we kind of hit it off there, and I caught the MMA bug, and saw Rashad on there, and I knew that it was a good opportunity to get into the sport, to compete against the top guys. Pride was still around. It was Pride was like one of the big ones that kind of got me, like hooked on to MMA, just because it was in Japan. The show was pretty crazy, and there was a lot of characters, but it was a little bit tough to get out there, and the TV show, it was just a lot easier for me to get on.
And it's amazing because it is a TV show, and again, you take the most grueling sport there is in MMA, and you try to put it on TV, and with anything, there's producers, and they're only going to show what they're going to show. Couple questions for you here, and then we'll kind of get into your career. And I appreciate you taking the time today with all of this. I had to cover your background just because, again, I'm from Northeast Ohio, and I just really wanted to be honest with you. Yeah. So, but look. So here's the thing. So why do you think a guy, like Gabe Rudiger, who was on that show, wouldn't take such a golden opportunity more serious? I will never forget the scene. It's you and BJ, and I forget if there's a third person, but I know for sure it's you and BJ, and you're trying to help this guy make weight all hours of the night, in a sauna. Like, why do you think, this is such a huge opportunity for so many people? Not many people get the chance to do it. Was it like the producers, or was he just a knucklehead, or what happened there?
like, I think Gabe Rudiger, he was the type of guy that he was pretty decent in MMA, but he was almost too smart for his own good, right? And he just tried to find a loophole to get his name out there because, again, it's getting your name out there. It's getting people to watch you, and there's a quote, like, in MMA is, I remember Josh Koscheck, he was talking to a person, like a high up, in the brass, and he's like, "Why is everybody booing me, man? This is terrible." He goes, "The only thing worse is if people do nothing." Right. So you try to get that, and that's when people will start becoming the fill-ins and people becoming, a guy that people don't like, is, to get their name out there. And, I think he was going for that loophole, and, ultimately it backfired on, pretty bad, like, on him, because everybody kind of looked at it like, why is he doing this? Why doesn't he just add a little bit in, but still, like, compete? Because he was pretty good in MMA, but he must have made a choice, like, right when he got on there, that, he was just going to try to get as much airtime, like, as possible.
Yeah.
I would tell the teammates, too, I was like, whatever you put out there, they can spin that any way to make you look good, bad, whatever it is. But you're putting it out there. They can clip it all. They can do whatever they want. It's a reality TV show, but it's anything but reality. We're not training right. The cameras are there. It's just, it is what it is. And people get caught up in the moment and don't understand the repercussions, that can happen.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, here we are, 10 years later, whatever it is, and me and you are sitting here talking about some guy who wanted to eat ice cream cake instead of train. I mean, that's how, right? Like, what the hell? Like, that's not what you think going into it. So, I get you. Trust me. I totally hear you. But look, man, some big names came out of that show. And then, again, I'm a diehard. I've seen, pretty much every UFC show there's ever been. So these are names to me, maybe not to the common people, but they are to me. Names like, Matt Wyman, Corey Hill, Cole Miller, Joe Lozon. All, I'm not going to use it. Nate Diaz, which we're going
to. Manny Gambarian.
Absolutely. It was a stout class.
I mean, it was, and then guys that were still like they were vets, but, never made it. But Rob Emerson, he fought for a long time. Brandon Melendez, he fought. That was kind of towards the end of his career. He was like on that TV show, and he had been fighting for a long time. So there was no easy week. There was a couple easy weeks, but every scrap was you had to be prepared for it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So for you had a quick finish over Wayne Weems and then Brandon Melendez after that. And then so you get into the semifinals of the show, which is usually the season finale before you go to the actual live event. And there you are against Nate Diaz for a shot at the finals. He submitted you in the second round. Now, I have the question worded like this. I said that was your first ever loss. Not on the record, because clearly it didn't count as a pro loss, but still mentally. That was mentally the first time you were in a cage where you walked out with the L. How hard was that to cope with, and how did it happen? How did it get you?
That was pretty hard to cope with, and again, it's reality, but it's anything but reality because, like, the day before they tell us, okay, no, the day of, like, possibly, hey, this is going to be a 3-round fight because we were doing 2-round fights before.
Yep.
And I think both of us, like, talking after, both of us everybody just wanted to get out of there, and that's our fault for not being, like, as prepared. But then again, you're at the mercy of how that coach trains. Maybe That's not how you train. But you can't look like a whiny baby, like, the training's terrible here. I mean, it makes good for TV, but, to a person that's just concentrating, like, on competing, it's, like, it's tough. I spent a lot of time on the treadmill because, as people lost, they kind of started drinking, not coming to practice. And I spent a lot of time on the treadmill. Going up against Nate, like round one, I felt as if I, handled him pretty easy. Round two, it's just classic Nate. He stays in there. He's durable. Great conditioning, and he caught me in that choke. That was a little bit different loss because I was just happy to get out of there. I was happy to have all that, like, the show be done, and actually get back to my real training, get back to my gym. And, I swore I would never do anything kind of like that again because it really took away from how, like, I competed by how I trained. And my actions, again, spoke afterwards. I went back to the gym and I trained my ass off and kept to my stuff and came back. I beat Diaz, I beat Edgar, I beat Dennis Seaver, I beat Clemente, I beat Florian, I beat all those guys. I was like
Roger Hurto.
Roger Huerta. I was like 8-9-0 in the UFC. And by the time I got to the title shot, we had a draw. Like, I'm literally on a 10-fight, like, no loss, streak. 8 of those are wins. 1's a no contest, which I still feel like, I won, and then, a draw. And, so.
Well, let me ask you this then. So I agree with you, Gray. Trust me, I do. Okay.
Yeah.
And as someone who watched every show, every fight card, me and a very good friend of mine would always say, when is he going to get his title shot? When is he going to get his title shot? And I worded the next question like this, because number one, I do believe that you beat Rob Emerson on the Ultimate Fighter. Maybe it makes for better TV, the no decision, but to me that was bullcrap. So my question is this, just to kind of touch on what you're saying. You go on you got on a streak, okay, after that. 8 straight wins. All right, I got Frankie Edgar, Dennis Silver, Roger Hurta, Nate Diaz, the same freaking guy who won the show. Nate Diaz, perennial title contender, Kenny Florian. Okay, you walk through. Frankie Edgar. You walk through all of them, right? Yet Dana White and the UFC balked at giving you a title shot because only one of those wins came the way of a finish. The rest of them were decisions. How frustrating was that? How ridiculous is that?
And at the time, it was kind of the number one contendership when I went against Diaz again, right? Mm-hmm. So it was between me and Edgar. He was putting together a couple wins. He beat Shirk, but he had another guy lined up with a decent name. That guy dropped out. He got a guy named Matt Veach in the replacement. The guy took the fight on 2 weeks' notice. He was kind of a wrestler guy, and he didn't have the stamina. He wasn't prepared. He TKO'd him in like round 2. I'm going up against Nate Diaz, one of the most durable, toughest opponents you can have. I mean, I really, it's hard to say, like, people who look great against, like a Diaz. And it goes back to MMA. It's all show, man. And they chose to go with Edgar, who I already beat, and maybe because he looked better, but and that's my problem with the UFC is there's no like they control the rankings, they control their agenda, they control the narrative of what happens,
Yeah.
And that goes to show you, I mean, is this a sport or is it more WWE, or is it just for them to make money, you know? And it's, you know, I'd really like to believe that, but, you know, and again, this is me kind of, you know, coming out and, you know, like trying to talk about this is the UFC. I mean, if you think of the mega stars, the you know, all the huge stars, the Bisbings, the Conor McGregor, the Ronda Rouseys, the GSPs, those are all new markets. They push those guys because they're all new markets, right? Canada, GSP, England, Bisbing, Ronda Rousey,
Female.
with the women, Conor McGregor with Ireland. Now, don't get me wrong, they had to work their ass off to get where they're at, but you know, there's a story of like a nicer path compared to like a way harder path, you know, to get to places. And in sports, we don't think about that because usually it's a tournament, you know, type deal, but this isn't, you know.
Well, let me, you know, and it's funny too because we'll get back to the interview here. I got, I think, 4 more questions left. I think, okay. 4 left. Thank you. But now we got 5 left because I got to throw this in because again, man, I've been watching this shit my whole life. I'm unbelievably passionate about it. Why is it fair, you know, to touch on your point right now, okay? Why is it fair a guy like, let's say John Bones Jones can't pass a drug test? Every other guy out there, all right, he fails his piss test. Guess what? He's off the card. John Jones fails a drug test, and they moved the card from Vegas to California a couple years back. Who the hell else is that going to happen for?
Yeah, no, it's just money, you know, and that's the agenda, right? Is you know, and that's where it gets a little frustrating because you see these guys that are just unbelievable, like beasts that are working their ass off just as hard, not getting paid as much because they don't have that it factor or whatever it is in the public eye. And you know, again, they're pushing what's best for them, right? What's best for their brand, their money, not the athlete, you know, and you know, and that just leads me to believe that you know, they structured their company not after you know, not after a sport company, but, you know, a WWE, you know, entertainment company. And this is entertainment for you guys, but it's not for us. This is real stuff that we go through a lot of pain for, a lot of blood, a lot of tears. And, you know, again, you know, we talk about the pay, we talk about like all that stuff. And if you look at fighters in like as a whole, there are no laws protecting us contractually, financially. MMA fighters, there's the Ali Act with boxers, but that covers combat sports. Well, combat sports doesn't cover MMA, you know. So what's happened is like as our sport, we have no rules or laws, and promoters are able to, you know, fulfill their agendas and what narratives that they want the sport to be or their promotion to be.
Well, you know, the thing too, and I'll get to the final 4 questions here in a second. You know, I'm going to throw this out there, and if it causes me to lose my media credential, then it is what it is. But I've had something on my heart, and I've covered several UFCs. You know, everybody's been real good. But the thing about it is, I've had this, you know, on my mind for a long time. A lot of people don't realize something. The UFC fighters don't get free tickets to shows, okay? Number 2, they don't have health. From what I understand, you guys don't have health insurance unless you pay for it yourselves.
When we're out of the UFC, you know, it's pretty much done. When we're in the UFC, we have training injuries.
Okay.
So my last fight, like I had this weird sickness that what Holloway had. You remember when he had that concussion deal?
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It wasn't a concussion deal. Me and my wife had it. We were slurring our words. We couldn't hold, and it was exact same time that he had it. So I went into the hospital, and they told me it was my liver. And I'm trying to make a long story short. And I go through all this stuff, and my liver was like through the roof. I end up racking up these $80,000 bills, and the UFC doesn't cover that type of stuff. And that's one of the reasons. On top of my long contract, 8-fight contract, that I had to hurry up and jump back in the cage, unprepared and not ready to go.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Just to kind of drive home that point too. There's travel. There's so many things that are involved that people don't even realize. You're allowed to have 3 guys in your corner or 4 guys in your corner, whatever it is. A lot of times I've been told that they charge, for family to be there for tickets. And it's like, if you want to go support a teammate, but you're not in his corner, you have to buy a ticket. I read a story one time where a guy like Daniel Cormier, who is an unbelievable ambassador of the sport and of the company, had to buy a ticket to go to Khabib versus Conor McGregor last year. Stories like that blow my freaking mind. Like that should never be the damn case.
You get 3 cornermen, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get 2 flights, one for you and one for a cornerman. You have to pay for the other 2 flights. You get 1 hotel room.
That's insane.
And a lot of times when you're not making a lot of money, you're all in that hotel room. And I know people who are making $10,000 a fight, lose a fight. They actually paid money to pay for their camp, to pay for to pay for their expenses, to pay for all that stuff. They actually lost money on competing for the UFC.
Yeah, and you're okay. So on top of that, let's say you're at home, you're Joe Sixpack, all right? You pay for the thing in HD at $70, all right? So you're telling me that you get 100 people to pay $70, so whatever that is, $7,000. You can't pay for an extra hotel room. The money's there, it's coming in. Why can't the company pay for more hotel rooms and flights and everything else? Again, I'm going to shut up before I get in a lot of trouble, but these are just the things I've always wondered.
Yeah, because the business model is don't let it go over 18% of the revenue. And the reason why is because they're making an exorbitant amount of money, billions of dollars, billions. And to put the numbers on paper, that looks good, for a company. But they fail to remember that it doesn't look good once this stuff starts getting out, and they've held it down and held it back for a long time, and Dana White's a great talker. He's a good promoter, but how good of a promoter he is. He has people that have to put food on the table. Even at the top. I went into a pay-per-view title fight, main event, only guaranteed $26,000. That was my guaranteed money, right? And I already spent, 20 on training.
Sure.
You talk about taxes. Walk into the cage. That's not a sport. That's life. That's fuck.
You're good. You're good. You're good.
But that's dude. I'm fighting for my life. That's it. And that's where it's not a sport. That's where it's and I say this and it's it could be kind of harsh, but it's true. You're like these little rich people's, game.
Well, and the crazy thing here, I'm going to ask, I'm going to get to these questions right now, but, here locally, he only lives about 15 minutes from me. Stipe Miocics, our heavyweight champion of the world. You know what? That's why he has a day job, people. A lot of people will always ask me, why in the world does the UFC heavyweight champion why is he a fireman? Why does he have a paramedic? Why is he a day job? Well, that's the reason why, right there. You listen to this interview, and you're going to find out quickly, because once those fights are done, the income's done, He's
a very smart individual.
Yeah.
He's a very smart individual, and, I'm a fan. He's a tough cat, and he's done what he needed to do, and, but again, that's why they don't want that type of stuff. That's why they don't want that stuff, because now he can hold out if he has to hold out, and that's why they were going to strip him. Like, they were going to strip him because he was doing his job, his other job.
Yeah. Granted,
he's making decent money, but what's really good money? Like, look at the Klitschko's compared to him.
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't, and I did an interview a couple days ago. They wouldn't even crawl out of bed for like what he's getting paid.
I mean, seriously. Yeah, I'm laughing because it's so pathetic. It's true.
Yeah, so that's kind of my knock on just the whole take on the UFC and like what's going on, and again, I don't feel like as if it's we classify it as a sport, but it's not really a sport, man. It's we're just kind of these little chess players to make the best moves to where the UFC can make the most money.
Well, I do agree in a lot of ways, and they're going to come back and always say, hey, we gave you the platform. If it wasn't for us, your name wouldn't be out there to make money off your name. So I understand that to an extent. I know my own personal feelings. Again, this is a interview and a podcast for a different day, because I could really let loose on the studies I've done, the fighters I've spoken to. Yeah, I mean, there's some major changes are needed. Some major changes are absolutely needed. But moving back to you here, as we kind of try to wrap things up for you, I don't want to take up your entire day. Now, you had your first shot at the title at UFC 125. I want to say it was New Year's Day or maybe January 2nd against Frankie Edgar. And many people, including myself, list this as one of the top 5 fights of all time. However, many fans, including myself, felt that it should have been stopped in the first round and you should have won. I will never forget, I was at BW3's here in North Olmsted, Ohio, and the whole entire bar was St. Ed's Eagles fans. I mean, this place was green. They were going crazy for you. We thought it was over. We thought it was over in the first. What was going through your mind when they didn't stop the fight? It ends up being a draw. Were you shocked that you didn't win, or really kind of what was going through your mind through all that?
Yeah, well, there was a shock. There was adrenaline rush. There was actually, like, if you look back at the stats, I threw probably 100 power punches just in that round, and there was a lot of confusion. I mean, there was a lot going in that round one, and like, I guess to pat myself, on the back is, you come back to the corner and you're just exhausted,
sure,
a little confused, adrenaline dumped, and and again, hats off to him and pats on his back. He had to come back from that, and it was just like we both had to get back to our corner and understand there's still a whole fight. There's still 4 rounds to be fought, and that's the crazy part about this sport. You got 1 minute to get your mind right, and if you look at it, walking back to the corner, you got 40 seconds to get your mind right, and to get your coaches, to get your mind right. And, could it have been stopped? Yes. But, I think the big question I have in my mind is, why are we doing a 10-point must if there's no such thing under a 10-8, right?
Yeah.
You look at
boxing, you got 10-7s.
I've never seen a 10-7.
Right. No, I know. I mean, in boxing you do. That's all.
Yeah. Like, you watch the Marquez against Pacquiao. Pacquiao knocked him down 3 or 4 times in round 1, right? And it was a 10-6 round. There was a couple cards it was 10-6, and Marquez came back and he worked his way all the way back to a draw. Right?
Yeah.
I can understand that, but I felt like if any fight had more than a 10-8 round, that was a fight to where you could have gave me a 10-7 round pretty easy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's my quarrel. like stopping it, it's up to the ref. But if you look at the points, I should have been, like up on the points, 10-7, even more. Like if there were, but even at least a 10-7, he won round 2. Pretty handily, but it wasn't a 10-8. I won 3. He won 4. Then you could have even scored the 5th round a draw. But that's just kind of where we're broken a little bit too, in the aspect of 10-point must. Is the most. Just tell us the most you guys can get is a 10-8. If that's the case.
Yeah, and the thing too is you wait 10 months to get a rematch, which again is absurd. But you wait 10 months, you get the rematch, you're there again. October 8th, I want to say it was off the top of my head. And that's what's crazy is I don't even have these freaking stats in front of me. I just that much damn of a diehard loser with no other life. but no, I mean I got a wife and kids, but no, seriously, like I remember these memories so good. But you wait 10 months, okay? You get in there again, and does not the same damn thing happen again? Here we go again. Where a lot of people think it could have been over in the first round. How come that fight wasn't stopped? Ultimately, you went on, I want to say, lost in the 4th, but just unbelievable night yet again. What was going through your mind again?
Just it was just a repeat, but I needed it to be, I needed to be a little bit more calm. So going back to the corner in round 1, it was just, like I knew to stay calm, didn't have a big adrenaline dump. Of course there was a little bit, but, it was just like, all right, here it goes again.
2 questions left for you here. Second to last question. A few fights later, you go on to fight Nate Diaz again. And this was another great trilogy because, I count any fight as a fight. So the fight in the house, I count as a fight. So basically, trilogy fight yet again. And honestly, how much did you see him improve from the time you knew him in the house until that 3rd fight? How leaps and bounds, how much better did he get?
He was the same Diaz. They've just always had pretty good boxing, great, jiu-jitsu, and again, it comes back to, I had to start doing other stuff. Even off those Edgar fights, my pay didn't increase that much. My pay went from 26-26 on the first title fight to just 42 and 42 for the second title fight. No pay-per-view points, no nothing. And I ended up like moving up to the Bay Area, which if I lost a fight, 42 grand is poverty up there.
Yep.
And so, I remember I was remodeling houses and stuff when I was training for Diaz. That understanding I got once I got to the title fight, of like, you can give them the best shows, you can put on the best fights, but at the end of the day, they're still gonna rake you over the coals, on money. And against Diaz, like, I mean, was a passion there? Not really. It was just, I was remodeling my house 8 hours a day, going to practice and just kind of taking the money that was left on the table, like in MMA. And, it's just one of those realities that you start understanding once you dive a little bit deeper into the numbers and the trajectories of like what their narrative kind of wants to be. And that's keeping people's pay as low as possible.
Well, one last question for you here. And the thing about it too, for me, again, a good friend of mine is Mike Goldberg. One thing that always bugged me about Goldie is he never got a proper farewell. I understand he's with Bellator now, but if you look back to his last pay per view performance, Ronda Rousey's loss, she got destroyed by Amanda Nunes. That fight ends and then that's it. And then we know that Goldberg, it was released days before that. That would be his last pay per view, last event with the company. Here's this guy, the voice of the company, gets let go, zero explanation given, no farewell, no, jack shit, nothing. I always thought it was terrible. So, a guy like you, a pioneer with the Ultimate Fighter, all of it, man, from day one, just all of it. And here we are now. What do you expect to happen to you in the future? Are you going to try to, make things right with them? Are you going to move to Bellator? Are you going to say the hell with it? Or, remodel houses for a living? What, seriously, like, and by the way, if I ever come out your way, man, we're going to have to grab a beer because you are just too cool. This has been a blast. this has been a blast. But one last question. What is your farewell gonna be? When is it gonna be? What's your plans for the future, my man?
My farewell was already done. We parted ways in 2018, and my farewell was pretty much, they've been trying to get me to retire for a long time because I was under contract, and they want anybody, that has a name to retire under contract because you're still under contract. They still own you if you're under contract. And he's been asking me, he signed me to an 8-fight deal and asked me to retire 1 fight into it. So, this last fight, didn't really go the way I wanted. He calls me up. He's like, I want you to retire, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, what? I'm just trying to get through my contract. Just give me the release, and gave me the release. And again, with Goldie and with me and, they're worried about building their brand. They're not worried about, like honoring people who help them grow the sport, who help them grow their brand, but they're just, what's next for our brand? What can we do to make our brand bigger? And anybody that does speak out, it's if you're under contract, it's not good. And Goldie, I think he might have spoke out a little bit, and that's kind of what happened. And then with me, I still feel great. I still want to compete, but again, I'm not going to compete for what I competed for with them. It's just not worth it, right? It's not worth it because you can't pay the coaches right. You can't pay half my career getting up to the title. I was spending more than I was even making, on getting to be the best. And that's what I need to do. But when you're locked into a contract and you start doing the numbers, it's hard to say, like, you know what, I'm going to spend, way more on my training. And it doesn't make sense. And, I'm the type of guy, I'm a fighter, and I will always stand behind all those guys and girls, and I will, speak out and do whatever I need to do to make it fair for these guys and girls who are bleeding, who are sweating, who have the tears. And, I'll stand up and try to make it right. Because again, we have laws to protect their health, like go get a physical, go get a blood test. The promotion has to have insurance on the night of. Okay, great. But there's no protection, for us, like financially. There's no protection contractually. There's no protection after the sport. There's nothing. And a lot of people, are starting to see that with kids coming up. And I just had a kid graduate from college, went through a whole camp, and, he watched this guy compete, and he lost money on the fight, just by doing this. And he looked at me, he's like, is this how it is? And I said, yeah, it is, man. Like this, like you have to catch a couple breaks. You have to, there's a lot that goes into being making this sport worth it.
Well, here I am. I've been doing this for many years, and because 95% of what we cover is high school sports, and a lot of people have asked me. They said, "Well, how come so many kids nowadays are going out for soccer? How come so many kids nowadays are going out for lacrosse?" Vince, you cover boxing all the time, but how come boxing's not popular anymore? Here's the thing. These parents are smart to it now, and now they're starting to sign their kids up for these sports where they think they're never going to get hurt. Whether it's bullshit or not, that's what they think, right?
Yeah.
So because they look into it and say, wait a second, here's all these football players with CTE. Here's all these MMA fighters who can't do crap after they retire because they're so beaten down and broken. Same with boxers. Why the hell are we going to put our kids in those sports? Wrestling too. Wrestling, hockey, all of it. The numbers are so depleted right now. It's sickening of the amount of kids who go out for hockey and the amount of kids who go out for wrestling. Some high schools don't even have programs anymore because of those things. Number one, there is no pro wrestling. No offense to Nick, but truly there is no actual pro wrestling. So they look down on that, which is wrong. But still, So I honestly hope, in my heart of hearts, a lot of people hear this interview. A lot of people hear what you've had to say, because to me, this is stuff I've been preaching for years. And again, I want to thank you again and just let you know you are welcome anytime you need to get something off your chest. You call me and we'll get it done.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And just for any parents, you got to look at you got to look at those sports. Like especially wrestling. And the payoff isn't competing. It's really what you build, and the attitude you build in life. Like, I know a lot of wrestlers who were great wrestlers, but you know what? After college, they were done and they moved on to Wall Street. They moved on to business. They moved on to a lot of different aspects, and they just apply that to that sport, or to that part of their life. Is what you put in is what you get out, and I think like wrestling is a physically demanding sport. It really is, but what you get out of it, and not a lot of people make money off, people who own tournaments and stuff like that, they make decent money, but it's it's a great sport, and if you can keep your kids in it, and I hope it grows, because it does, it does teach a lot.
Absolutely. And Gray, we want to thank you. I figured I'd have you on 10 to 15 minutes. We are approaching the hour, the hour mark.
That's
So
all right.
all good, man. And I meant what I said. If you ever come back home to Northeast Ohio, look me up, and vice versa if I come out your way. Sound good?
Yeah, you owe me a beer then.
Yeah, I owe you 6.
There we go.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Have a good one, bud.
You too. Bye now.
Bye.
So that was a great time. I figured it would be Gray Maynard, a MMA legend, just a really good guy there. So, and take heart to what he said. A lot of what he said was the 100% truth. There's a lot of things these fighters go through that no one knows. I learned it on the independent circuit with certain promotions I had worked with when I first got my start, in broadcasting. And yeah, no doubt about it. There's a lot of training that goes into this that's unpaid for. A lot of people can't work an everyday job because they have to train all day, and the money doesn't come in like you would think it would. It's really is sad. Mixing the health insurance, the health benefits, and everything else that don't occur once you're out of that cage. And it's not all glamorous like everybody seems to think sometimes. So we want to thank Gray Maynard, thank the St. Edward Wrestling Program as well. Everybody have a great day, and you've been listening to Key on Sports.